Welcome to TYT Sports, everybody. I'm Ben Mankiewicz, joined by Michael Schur and Jen Gilger. You'll hear from them shortly. This is the NFL Playoffs Recap, brought to you by the Vizio P-Series 4K Ultra HD Smart TVs. So the most dramatic game of the day was the second game, Cowboys and the Lions. And in my entire life, I think everyone is saying this, I have never seen a call changed after the referee said it out loud, ever, not one time. And yet so many of these stories about this call talk about, yeah, no, they picked it up. It was the right thing to do. No, they picked up. We've all seen flags picked up before, but never after they say pass interference, automatic first down.
Yeah. Also, it was the wrong thing to do.
It was also right. It was the wrong thing to do. There you see what appears to be very clear pass interference by Hitchens against Pettigrew. I don't even think the issue is, I've been using this for a couple of years. There you see another penalty not called, Dez Bryant coming out on the field to plead the case that it shouldn't be pass interference without his helmet on. But that I don't care about. You know, I wouldn't want them to have called that. But it's just, and there was also a defensive holding against Pettigrew prior to the ball even being thrown. They could have made it simpler and just called a 5-yard penalty, though it would have been an automatic first down. Debating whether something was interference or not is frustrating to me because we see it on the one real injustice that I think the play-by-play guys and color commentators do is talking about interference as much as they do while we see it in slow motion because everything looks insignificant. But you know, as you're running downfield, if I grab your shoulder right before the ball gets there or pull on your jersey, you're not going to catch it. You don't need to tackle the guy. And that call, if interferences ranges from 1 being questionable to 10 being flagrant, that was like a 4 or a 5. It was a reasonable call that gets made probably most of the time in the NFL. Sometimes it doesn't get called, but sometimes it does. And whenever it does, yeah, it wasn't wildly flagrant, but for crying out loud, Pettigrew reached his right arm back and Hitchens brought
the call stands.
Yeah, right. Well, the call stands. So, I mean, so let's leave out whether it should have been interference because it clearly could have been interference. And if it could have been and was called, there's really no grounds to do what they did.
Okay, so let's get started. Number one, it's an 8 out of 10. Okay, that was egregious.
I'll take 6.
No, I won't bend out of 8.
I'm with Jank here.
Yeah, I mean, he runs smack into Pettigrew, not looking back at the ball at all. There's no question. There's no question. Now, Cowboys fans have come out with all of their bullshit excuses, right? Oh, Pettigrew grazed his face mask at some point. But no, the officials didn't say face mask. The officials said, oh, he was just face guarding and that's legal, right? No, they didn't say anything about it. No, so that's made up. That's made up. There's no face mask. There's no nothing, okay? He did not look back at all. It's a penalty. There's no question it's a penalty. If they didn't call it, it would have been egregious. They called it, and they got talked out of it. So now, look, let me be clear, okay? There's all these conspiracy theorists now. The head of officiating was caught on a Dallas party bus in the beginning of the season and stuff. And they want the Packers and the Cowboys or the NFL. No. Listen, why did they let Sue back in the game? And lift his suspension if they want Packers Cowboys. Right? Come on. No. Here's what happened. They were weak referees, and they got talked out of the call. You see it on the sidelines. I don't know why nobody's talking about this.
The ref said it afterwards in his press conference. The pool report said he went and he spoke to the head linesman. The head linesman said, no, it wasn't. It's his call. He was closer. The ref, Morelli, said he was so far away from the play. He was 100 miles away.
The Cowboys sideline is screaming at him the whole time, okay? They briefly showed it on television. They never went back to it. But the Cowboys sideline, Dez Bryant, the reason he's on the field is because he's pleading his case. And the weakest referees I have ever seen in my life go, oh, I guess you're right, Dez. I'm so sorry to offend you. And then whatever piss-ass coach that was out there screaming at them, okay, sorry, we'll overturn a perfectly good call after we announced it.
And it brings up another issue. It brings up another issue with this refereeing crew had not worked together,
I think
right?
That's a very significant issue.
And I think it's significant. And why? Why do they do that? Why not keep a crew together? I mean, they think that there's bias or they want to mix it up or they think that anybody can be plugged in any
union.
It's
I mean,
yeah.
it's like you gotta, but you should rank the referees based on the crews, and the best crews.
Exactly, the crew is what goes.
Because what reads to me is what happened here is the back judge, a guy named Lee Dyer, he threw the flag from across the field.
Oh, that was Dyer? That was Dyer out there? Yeah.
But you throw the flag from across the field because it might have been he was the guy who saw the contact. I mean, you might have the best angle to see it. So the across the field part is not relevant. He wasn't on a different field. He was on this field.
Yeah.
And then the linesman, Jerry Bergman, came in and offered the different view. And if they're on the same team and used to talking to each other, then they probably solve that and bring in Pete Morelli, who was the lead official, and work it out ahead of time. And if they picked it up without calling it, it wouldn't be the big story that it is, and something that the NFL is going to have to deal with. I still disagree with you guys that I think that call doesn't get made a few times because it wasn't, to me, overwhelming, but it doesn't matter. It could have been called, and it was called, and that was it.
Now, I got to address one more thing here. All the guys saying, oh, Detroit still could have won. No, of course they could have. And if I'm on Detroit, I would have rallied everybody the best I could and been like, guys, we got to get over it. We got to get over it, right? So we got screwed, but that's life, and you got to get past it. But I'm not on Detroit. I'm an outside observer, and they got hosed. They got robbed. So the guys saying they could still win, okay, great. Then if you're a Cowboys fan, next game against the Packers will start with a 21-0 lead. You could still win. You could still win. And every time the Cowboys score a touchdown, we'll award it to the Packers instead. But you could still win. Every time you couldn't win. But you could still win.
And I know we're going to move on to Jim Caldwell, who I think foolishly, and I don't have the same problems with him as you do, and I think Detroit's a good team, but foolishly didn't go for it on fourth down. Did the fake.
So it's super interesting because historically I think Jim Caldwell, I have been under the belief that he's a horrible coach. Okay. I was proven fairly wrong this year because I thought he did a commendable job of coaching this year. He did. And to my great pain. Okay. And I don't like the Lions. I've never liked the Lions. They're a bunch of losers. They have been historically. They're pathetic and they're mean in a stupid kind of way. Like Sue stepping on Rodgers' legs, the perfect example of that. And he should have been suspended. He should have stayed suspended.
Agreed.
And so I got no love for the Lions. Okay. But Jim, if they don't make the 4th and 1 there, they've lost momentum. If they don't make the 4th and 1,
just to be fair, the 4th and 1, it always matters. It wasn't 4th and half a yard. It was a solid,
a real yard.
Real yard.
And they were undone by a terrible punt that he could not have forecast.
That's right. He didn't know that the guy was going to punt at 9 yards. So if they don't make it, and then the Cowboys have the ball on the 50, and all they need is a field goal, everybody would have said Jim Caldwell is the dumbest coach in America. Right. So just as a matter of the 9-yard punt and the results, now everybody's blaming Jim Caldwell. But I guarantee you they would have blamed him even more ferociously.
I wouldn't have gone for it, in part because even though this team has Reggie Bush and Theo Riddick, who's pretty good, and Jaquan Bell, when somehow they're not good in those situations, and Stafford isn't good, maybe because he is such a slow everything quarterback, slow-footed, slow to wind up, slow to release the ball, that I didn't even, and you know how I feel about punting. I would almost never punt. I would have punted then because it was a full yard. You couldn't count on a quarterback sneak leaning forward.
I was sitting with you, and I said, you got to punt here, but if you're talking about your opportunities, now few opportunities, that's a decision that a coach that maybe is a great coach or somebody who, I mean.
Okay, hold on. I watched a lot of Lions this year because I bet against them, which was wrong, okay? And I've seen Caldwell this year, as opposed to previous years, go for it on 4th down over and over and over again. And I don't think he choked there. I think what happened was he thought, they're on the 50. All they need is a field goal. And as you said, we're not doing great here in terms of penetrating into the Dallas defensive line in the second half. I thought it was totally fine decision to punt.
That punt. I mean, no coach thinks they're going to get a 9-yard punt out of their punter. No one does.
Yeah, it's all of a sudden it's like that guy was on the Cardinals. Very
what is wrong? Why is the Alabama punter infinitely better than all NFL punters?
By the way, very quickly on the formulas done where you can figure out a team's percentage of victory, likelihood of victory. The Lions were at 78% if that pass interference gets called, 66% with the punt. So they had a chance, but that's a significant change. And then obviously if you factor in the short punt, I suspect it.
Yeah, by a lot.
It went up. So And, look, if the Cowboys, if the Lions keep that ball and then run out of plays right then and kick a field goal from 42 yards, if the ball stops there at the 25-yard line, and field goals all year were no easy thing for the Lions, then they're up 23-17. The Cowboys have to score a touchdown. They did score a touchdown, 24-23, but then the Lions are in a different position, getting the ball with 2 or 3 minutes left and only needing a field goal.
24-20.
24-23, a totally different game where the Lions don't have to go the length of the field. And Matt Stafford can take that sack because he doesn't have to think, oh my God, it was fourth down in that situation. But the whole drive is different when you only need to get to the 30-yard line.
Yeah.
Chances, guys. Next week, Cowboys and Packers, as we've been doing before. I guess the Packers are obviously the favorite here, but Cowboys, 50% chance against the Pack in Green Bay?
I'm willing to weigh in on the Colts and the Broncos because of my historic hatred for Peyton Manning. But I have lost all credibility here, and I have to be honest. So I'm not even going to make a prediction because my last 56 bets, if I were to be a betting man, 4-52.
Of what?
Historic. 4 wins, 52 losses.
In your last 56 bets?
That's right.
I don't believe that.
I'll show you the account. I counted it this morning.
Really?
Amazing. So if I tell you the Packers will crush the Cowboys, which is what I think, bet the opposite.
Now, part of it, you should explain. You make a lot of bets in game, so like you pile on the loss. So when you're wrong, you compound the loss. So like
That's true.
You might have had like 14 bets on the Cardinals.
Yes, but also like Jonathan Stewart under 67 yards, like things like that, right? And so yes, there's definitely a compounding.
No matter what, it's about a sort of a thematic wrongness.
That's right. And so understand.
Thank God you're only betting $10.
So no, it's hubris because for 2 seasons I've been crushing it.
Yeah.
And I thought I could do no wrong. Turns out I was wrong. So Packers, Cowboys, I don't know.
So 50-50.
50-50.
I put the Cowboys at about the same thing. It's 30%.
I have them a little higher.
You can't figure the Cowboys because you're so tempted to take history that is not 2014. We've seen.
But that history is 2013.
Right. So it's not outrageous. It wasn't that long
it's
ago.
not
It's
like
Jason Garrett and Tony Romo
right.
and basically the same defense, and yet. And Romo didn't look that good for most of this game. A lot of balls seemed short. Maybe receivers didn't break the patterns off right, but the ball, as Aikman said, didn't seem to be coming out with the same zip that he's had most of the year, where people are talking about him for MVP. So look, let's still not forget that, and that the Packers at home, until the Seahawks showed up, Green Bay was the place you didn't want to have to go in the playoffs.
Yeah. It's like a frozen mass
Yeah,
of
it's a
land.
frozen mass.
Yeah.
Right. It's hard. Frozen
it's
hard.
like
Turf, right?
Yeah, frozen like a gelid tundra.
Okay.
And and don't forget that the person who Romo is probably going to lose to MVP is Aaron Rodgers, who's sensational all the time. So
Okay,
I'd put it at I'd say 30% for the Cowboys.
So, but now don't forget. Packers sometimes mysteriously suck, as they did against the Bills.
And their defense isn't the Lions' defense.
And the Packers' defense is not that good. They've been much better at the end of the season than they were in the beginning of the season, but they can still suck from time to time.
Their level of opponent was worse at the end of the season.
They
played the
in
Buccaneers.
Buffalo.
Yeah.
They probably win that game if Jordy Nelson doesn't inexplicably drop what would have been a 96-yard touchdown. Granted, okay, I got you.
It's the Bills.
He dropped it. The Bills are fine. The Bills are. The thing it is, in the NFL, on the road, you lose some games.
And the next week they went to Tampa Bay and they won. But it's again, they're not playing the toughest offenses down the stretch.
And I've always said the jury's out on Tony Romo. I've always said people are too tough on him. And it turns out, no, he's clutch. I've seen him be clutch 1,000 times. And they have Dez Bryant. They have the best running back in the league. They have the best offensive line. 50-50.
And 2 other good receivers, and you can't say, look, that was a third down play. That game was about to be 20-20. The Lions rushed him. Romo moved, read the pocket, just didn't scramble, just moved around it, stepped up, moved side to side, and then bang, after 4 seconds, like almost every NFL game, the coverage breaks down, and he found Terrence Williams. That was a play that we have come to expect from Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady.
Okay, last 2 things because I can't resist. Rodgers could still get hurt. Remember, his legs
not practice till Thursday.
That's right. So keep that in mind. But nonetheless, don't get me wrong. Packers are at home. So, of course, it's actually 60-40 Packers.
Thanks for watching the NFL Playoffs recap on TYT Sports, brought to you by the Vizio P-Series 4K Ultra HD Smart TV.